So now that you have your source file, we need to put our patterns into these, and they need to be at the size. In order to put a pattern, we need an object. Let's go to the object tool, and we're going to click and hold on it until you get the rectangle tool. And we're just going to make a rectangle that's exactly the size of your artboard. You could make 3 of these, or you could also just copy and paste one into the other 2 artboards. But I just made 3. They look invisible because the fill is white. So let's get the selection tool, and I can see now I have 3 objects. Now let's get our swatches out. Window, swatches. So instead of filling these objects with a color, we're going to put in the patterns that we created. But you'll notice that in my swatches, I do not have the patterns that I created in my triangle source file. So what you need to do is you need to open up, so go to File and Open, and find your file that is the source file for your triangles. That is the file that you made, the very first part, and it should be called your first name, your last name, and triangle, and it's an Illustrator file. So that's what the file should be called. So why are we using 2 different files instead of just having everything in one? Well, I want to show you how to save your swatches so that if you need to hand over your pattern to another designer, for instance, and they are working in, say another designer is working in a different file, such as this, which is just for the end papers, but they want your pattern swatches. So they're not going to write, you don't always need to work in the same document all the time just to access the same pattern. So you need to understand how to take these patterns and be able to use them in a different file. And that could be because you're working in a different file, or because you need to hand them off to another designer or to an art director or to a client, or for whatever reason. So it's just important to know how to transport these things. So let's go back to our triangle source file. You'll have your patterns in the swatch window. So if you don't have the swatch window open, go to Window and then Swatches. The patterns you made should be in there. And we need to save this these swatches so that we can put them in the other file. Make sure nothing is selected, first of all. So you can grab the selection tool and click somewhere off of it so nothing is selected. Now I'm going to go in here and I need to select the patterns before I save them. I cannot take this pattern and put it into a group. If you have a pattern or a gradient, say I shift click to select multiple and say I want to put it in a group, it says color groups can't contain patterns or gradients. So they have to remain up here. So make sure all the patterns are selected. This is really important. If they're not selected, the only thing that's going to be saved in your group are your color swatches, which we don't need. We need the patterns. So select those, click on the first, press shift, and click on the last one. All of them should be selected. Go to your menu. Let's save swatch library as AI. Let's give this a name, my first name, my last name, and this is pattern and swatches. Put it somewhere where you know where it is. It's really important because you need to find it in 1 second. So this is swatch file AI. That looks good. I'm going to save it. Now let's go to my Endpaper source file. If your swatch window is not open, you're going to go to Window, Swatches. Go to this little menu right here, the 3 lines. Go to Open Swatch Library. The very bottom, you have Other Library. Click on that. Now you need to find the thing you just saved. So put it in my desktop. Don't do this. Have an actual folder for your stuff. Katrina Kopelov pattern swatches. That's what I just saved. Open that. This opens in a new little window thing. These are some swatches I saved, but I didn't select the pattern, so you can see the patterns aren't in there. If you want to make this bigger, let's go to the menu and you can say large thumbnail view. It gets a little bigger. So we have 3 objects. Let's click on the first one and I want to fill this. So make sure your fill is selected. I do not want a stroke, so I'm going to click on the stroke and select none. And then let's go to this next one. For your fill, I want to have the next pattern in there. I do not want a stroke, so I'll get rid of that. And then let's go to your next object. This is letter size paper objects, and we want to change the fill color, so we need this box in the front. Remember, if this is set to the front, you're just changing the stroke, and so it's like, well, why did nothing happen? It's because I'm changing the stroke and not the fill. If you click up here, this is swapping whatever is in the stroke in the fill box. And I do not want anything in my stroke, so I'm just going to say none for that. So I have my 3 patterns in my source file as 8.5 by 11 objects. Let's make sure that we save this before we do anything else. There's a little star next to AI. That means that it hasn't been saved. So we're going to go to File and Save. Now there's no little star, so all your work has been saved.